Alright, so here's our setup for machining the bore on the, I believe this is the headstock end of the Atlas centers. I've already centered it up under the mill. I've got some supports, even though you can't really tell because we've got it clamped up here. I've got a machinist jack underneath the back of the casting there, as close as I can get to the bore without interfering. And then under the base itself on the back, I've put a adjustable parallel underneath there to take up the slack. So hopefully with that setup we're going to be fairly stable and rigid so that we can go ahead and get this. I'm going to end up and first drill it out, and then we're going to bore it. And then I've probably got a reamer that we'll probably just run a reamer for final size down there. We'll see what kind of a finish we get by running the boring bar down through. But I've got the boring bar set up now. Like I say, we're already centered up, and I've just done a visual check. Now this boring bar is too big to even start down into the bore at this point in time, just through the core that's already there. So I'm going to very carefully step drill it up until I get close to that diameter, and then we'll go ahead and switch over to the boring bar. And we'll know pretty quick if we've got a rigid enough setup to get this bored out. In this same setup, why we're going to, assuming everything does as it's supposed to, on the bottom of that casting underneath, and I can show you on the original casting. On the original casting here, we've got this cut for our sliding bracket to go on there, and this holds our index pointer. So in the same setup, we're oriented this way and parallel to the world. Why we'll go ahead and cut these slots. I don't know if we'll probably go ahead and drill and tap that hole while we're set up there. So that's the plan. Alright, well, we'll have to break this setup down. I know this is not a very good view of everything, but we'll break this down and I'll show you what I've got. Now, I've gone ahead, we bored the center, and I was going to ream that, but we're getting a real good finish with that boring bar, so we went ahead and bored it to dimension. And then the adjustment clamp to hold your gear index on the bottom side of it, we went ahead, slotted that, and what we did is we decked off this edge up here, and then decked off our height on the back piece for the proper height for spacing, and then we've cut our slot to hold that. And I'll show you that when we do it. Now, before I break this down off of the angle plate, what I'm going to do is we're going to unbolt it, clean everything up again, and I'm going to flip it around and orient it so that this top piece is facing upward. That way we can pull our dimensions, and we went ahead and made a little scribe mark there so we can use that as a center for our offset. And we'll go ahead, move our clamp out of the way, and we'll drill and bore this hole for our split cotters to clamp the spindle in place. So that'll be the next setup. We'll have to move that one C-clamp, so we'll have to be careful when we move that not to lose any positioning of it. But we'll flip the angle plate up on its side, rotate it around the other way so that I've got a better visibility of it, and then we can go ahead and drill and tap that, or bore that. That way we know it's at 90 degrees to both to the spindle bore here and to our orientation every place else. So once we've got those done, then we can break it down, and then we'll have to do the tailstock end in the same operation we did here, although there's a couple more steps there. It's threaded on the back end, and it's not a 1-inch bore, it's only a 3/4 inch bore, I believe. So we've got a couple more steps to do on that. Once we get the tailstock to the same position, or the same condition as we've got after we bored for the split cotter on this, then they'll become a matched pair, and we'll match them up so that heights and angles and everything, alignment is hopefully as close to perfect as we can get it with the equipment that we've got. Then we'll go ahead and face off the bottom of it, drill our holes there, and get it set up. We'll have to slot it too for our key on the bottom of them, but we'll do them as a matched pair then, so everything matches up and alignment's right on them. Here's our end view of it, and I'm perfectly happy with that. This is our cutouts we made, and we've drilled and tapped it there. We'll have to go back and clean that up. But this is actually an original slider block that I've got here. But it sits on there. Our index pin comes out the end. It's spring loaded, and that index is on whatever gear we've got on the end to give us our indexes for what we want for turnouts. So I'm very happy with that. That looks good. I pulled dimension off of the back edge as one of my references, so we're off center on our bore just a little bit, but that's where the dimensions come out. That's just casting differences. Now I've got a little bit of a step down here that I'll smooth out. I'll make adjustments on the pattern before we cast any more of them, and we'll eliminate that. So yeah, all in all, that looks pretty good. Alright, well there's the completed setup, just that quick. Everything looks pretty good. A few dimensions I may change a little bit as we proceed forward with the next one, but this is looking pretty good. So let's break her down and take a look at it. Well, here's our headstock end, and I'll make a few changes to the patterns. What are we going to do? We've got a little bit of an undercut here that doesn't need to be, this one I'll finish out, it'll be fine, but I'll change the pattern, so we'll relieve a little bit under here so we've got a little better transition there. We don't need quite this much of a boss, so we may shorten that up, although that really doesn't hurt anything. Now, I indexed it up off of where I thought was the proper position for it, which is put it just off center, both front and back of this boss, or of the center of this if we look at the outside. So spacing on it's just about right. Our center hole for our lock is just about where it should be in the boss on the front. So I could foreseeably move this over, a 64th of an inch or something like that. On this end, when I look at the original pattern that I've got, it's got a bigger boss on here, but this whole length needs to be shortened up about 40 thousandths. It's a little bit too long on this end, so probably when I face that off, that 40 thousandths will give us just about the right boss that we want. On the original, they show a substantial boss there, but I think it'll be just about right once it's faced off here, and it's more cosmetic than anything else. So this is, this is a prototype to find out what we need to change and what we're gonna make different on it. So we've slotted the end for here and tapped it, and that's where this adjustment arm, this is the factory adjustment arm, I'll fit it to the proper one. I've got a casting here, but that fits on there. Your gear sits on the end and indexes with your spring-loaded pin, locks in place there. So we'll do that. So we're going to get the tailstock to the same place as this. We want to go ahead and we're going to bore it. It has to be threaded on this end for a retainer cap, and this is the same shaft, or I believe this is the same shaft and end cap as is on the Atlas 6" lathe, on the 618. Now, a couple of differences, of course. On the index centers, there's no graduation markings on the spindle itself of this, but otherwise, to me, it looks virtually identical when I compare them to a 6" Atlas tailstock. This is what they are, So dimensions for the shaft itself are, like I say, virtually identical. This is a little bit shorter than the 6" lathe, but other than that, they're pretty much the same. So we're going off of those specifications. The back end's threaded for this would be the back end, is threaded for the end cap, just like on the lathe tailstock. So anyway, what the plan is I'm going to go ahead and we'll machine this one to get to this same point. And there again, all we've got to do is bore it and drill it and bore it for the, or drill it and ream it for the locks. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same procedure to do the tailstock as I did for the headstock. Then I'm going to turn an arbor so that these will both mate up as a set. So there'll be a set that sits this way. I'm going to run an arbor all the way through both of them in this configuration because this is the way they are. We'll set them up in that so that our center bores match and they're in alignment this way, up and down, any which way you can. They're in alignment right there, and I'm going to lock them to the shaft. Then we can flip them upside down, probably centered on a set of V-blocks and backed up with probably an angle plate to support them in the bottom up position. And from there we can deck off the bottoms of them. So we'll be able to machine off both the bottoms. We'll cut for our keys on that will align them with the table. We'll go ahead and do that while we've got them aligned and set up. And then we'll, from the bottom side, we'll go ahead and drill through for our mounting holes on that we'll have to measure out so they come out through our bosses on front and rear. And on the headstock end, I've seen both of these both ways. I've seen them with 2 holes in the headstock, and then I've seen them also with only 1. But yeah, we can do the rest of the machining on the castings themselves in that configuration, and then the castings will be done. So then it's just going to be back to machining all the rest of the steel components. We'll continue onward. Actually, we've got the other casting to do. We've got to machine. We have to machine the casting for our indexing pin setup that will sit on there. So this is the way everything assembles. Right there, just like that. Your gear will index off of a keyway on this side, and this will align on center once the nut's on there, and then if this is faced off the proper amount, that will bring us back to where we're centered up there, and that's the way it goes together, just like that. So, anyway, that's where we're at with this. Hopefully I haven't rambled on too long and you've got a little bit from it. Any comments or suggestions, leave them in the comments section for me below, and hopefully I've given you something a little bit entertaining. And if you haven't already, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button. If you hit the bell notification, you'll know when I put out a new video. And thanks for taking the time to watch.